Talk to her.
Just the agendas.
Because we've got to, whenever he comes, we plan on doing a ribbon cutting first place right here. And then we're having a trolley, and we're taking around on the tour. This is what we're doing. We're initiating the start of tour season in Clarksville. So, and then we're going to have a reception at the museum. So this is just the first tour. We have 3 tours planned. This is the start of the second one on the back. Because the tree has a plaque in front of it already.
This is your like.
But I'm getting plans for him to come.
Yeah.
So,
Like, oh, and that's where she can notify me, or you can send me an email.
okay.
And, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. I like this. This is nice.
So I just wanted you all to see where I'm at on this.
Okay, great. Nice-
And that he's going to be
nice,
coming soon. I just don't know the date yet.
So what's Santa Claus?
Did you see this? I'm assuming you saw this.
And I'll get a copy and then we call the board.
I'm gonna call JD first, I'm gonna see where's at. Before the hearing, like 2 of them.
Think that'll work?
Huh? No. But the next time I'll just take off on the board. We'll charge them instead of 180, we'll charge them 500.
Hey, you get one.
I'll see you.
He'll be here.
Just write it in. Tiffany Fell. Who's that? Oh,
I think so. Yeah, maybe a little bit.
this is.
Well, I thought you were so good. Is that your snowman? You don't want,
We don't need figures.
what do you want? Do you want just the agenda?
Just the agenda.
I don't print it out, yeah. Yeah. I agree. But I just did it. Right, yeah.
Yeah, if you know your preferences, you should have adjusted accordingly.
Oh, right, okay.
Cities make money, so that's a good start.
Everything goes to the city.
I don't mind if you remind
Just
me.
so, just so you know, the other cities.
I'm sorry?
The other cities.
So.
But you left it a mess over there.
No, no, the six seats.
Oh.
Once you, do you want me to do roll call? Do you want me to start running?
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, this is.
Everybody's got their city manager's report for after 2. It's longer now.
I see that. Looks good.
Yeah.
Looks good.
Anything on that, Tommy?
And then, once there's a second, there could be a discussion. Then after discussion's done, then usually someone will say, call the question. All in favor?
I might add place to that.
Yeah, take a moment, right?
Because of my heritage, my mother was 12 kids.
I didn't get a phone call.
Oh, this is what's going into the,
Because I need to see that every week.
oh, okay. yeah,
It's
that's
not your
fine.
welcome. It's not your welcome.
Yeah, that's what I need. Well,
Yeah, so that's me home. That's just.
that's easy.
I was office coming up with it, I'll rectify myself.
I know you don't have time, so.
This first.
No, we'll go through this. Here it is. This is for.
Okay. And I'll-
This is
Thank you.
for discussion. This is the-
Bye. You probably just start back tomorrow.
I think I did, yeah.
We waiting for you?
I said, use me too.
Yes, sir. So,
Yeah.
once we got here.
Picking the trash.
You wanna wait?
It's okay.
Do you want to start or do you want to wait? We can wait till just.
How long, how late did he say?
He said he'll be at 10.
Are you
We'll start at 5:30.
Right, and we'll get through this. I'll make sure we get through this.
Let me know.
Thank you.
I'll try to come.
But it looks very nice.
Very simple.
You busy today, hey?
Yeah. Little bit.
Yes, we're
Sorry, couldn't come down.
We're at the conference. And then at 6, we'll start back.
Did you go to the employee
No, I mean, it's very, very, yeah.
So did you want me to read through that whole thing or did you just want to receive this information?
Oh, no, no, everybody gets one.
No, do you want me to read all 5 pages out or do you want to just receive this information on the agenda?
I mean, you can cut it back if you want, that doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
I mean, like, you know, they replaced 200 feet sewer lines, you know, instead of, I mean,
Shutting again?
and that, something. He's coming.
It's going to be here in 2 minutes.
Hey, Tiffany,
Yes,
can I
sir.
have one of those blue pens there?
Yep.
I don't know which one. Thank you.
I'll leave an extra one over there too in case someone's runs out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I like to follow along with the.
Hey, just want to make sure you sign the tax and the grass. You want to put as much from those pallets as you can and head out to the wall, okay? Don't sorry. Oh. Hey, can you hear me? Yes. Yeah. Okay, just try it today. Oh, it's
This gonna be a secret. This is all the information that I've been through.
That's the submittals from those previous meetings.
Maybe it should be at the end, probably.
Doesn't matter what this is. I said,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, yeah. This is- Should we start or should we wait?
Wait 2 more minutes or start?
That's Wall Street.
Very much so.
Yeah, this is right?
Is it? That was me, was it? No, my keys are here.
Wayne said since you're late, you have to sweep Main Street for the broom.
Got words in my mouth now.
Are you all right now?
What's that?
Patty next to you.
Yeah.
Patty, all right with the seating?
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with this roll call, please.
Councilmember Howe, Councilmember Hyman,
I'm here.
Councilmember Jackson,
Here.
Councilmember Worth,
Here.
Councilmember Wright. Here. Vice Mayor Riffle.
Here.
Mayor Malvacher.
Here. Okay, so we're gonna start with the conference session. Ms. Val, do you want
Yes, I can
to
start.
take the lead there, please?
So first up for discussion items, for council's information, the agenda and minutes for council, the format has changed just to make them a little easier to read and more clear. So I just wanted to get any thoughts or feedback. This is your first agenda. You also have the manager's report that's done in that new format. Just want to make sure everybody's all right with that moving forward.
Works for me. I think it looks good.
Perfect. Next is the comment, question period, and delegation. So I have a couple of suggestions I would like to speak to council about. One is instead of opening it to the public, just for any topic, I would suggest council separates that into 2 different pieces. The first would be to do a question period right at the beginning of the council meeting, where the public can ask questions pertaining to the specific agenda and the topics within that agenda. There should also, I would suggest that there be a delegation period. So right now, anybody can come forward and speak, and basically it's the same thing. However, they would have to sign up 3 days in advance, either by calling the city clerk's office or by submitting an email. And that way it gives a chance for staff to give some history to council before the delegation happens, and council can do their own research if they'd like on the issue that's going to be spoken about. And it just adds some format and decorum to the council chambers. I just think it's a very good way of going forward. I wouldn't suggest we do that change overnight. What I suggest is we start it next council meeting and roll and give it a 2 to 3 month time period. So as we're open to the public, every time someone comes up to speak, we can reiterate to them by September 30th, this is the new format that we're going to move into, to give the public a chance to adjust to that new format. I just wanted to hear council's thoughts on that.
So I had a question, Ms. Fell. Would this be under petitions, communications, and public hearings?
It would actually become its own next, probably underneath that, or we would change that to question period and then delegations.
And does it fall in line with open meetings law in West Virginia?
So when I spoke to Annette, and I believe I chatted with Richard as well, they didn't see an issue with it, actually.
I'm sorry. Hattie, you have something?
No, go ahead.
Sure.
Well, so you mentioned 3 days, giving the public 3 days, but we put the agenda out 3 days as well. How would that?
Well, because the delegations where they would sign up to speak have nothing to do with the agenda.
Oh.
So I just want to make sure if we say you have to have it in by end of day Monday, that gives the city clerk's office enough time to get it onto the agenda. And it just, again, it helps for research, it helps council to be prepared, and don't want to disrupt the public. So giving them some time to get used to that 2 or 3 months, I think would be a good thing going forward.
Mr. Hyman?
I'm curious, will there still be would members of the public still be available to speak the day of the meeting? Or is there going to be two separate sections where one section they'll have to apply 3 days ahead of time, and then there'll be another section where they can get up and do it like they've been doing, or is that going to completely go away?
So the two sections, the question period would pertain to the agenda.
Mhm.
And then the delegations would be in advance. So there wouldn't be the opportunity just to ad hoc stand up and speak. But generally, most people that are coming here are longstanding issues. So they should be able, with 2 or 3 months notice, should be able to sign up to come and speak. Council does have the opportunity, if they would like, if someone does have an urgent issue with the consensus of council, they could still have the opportunity to speak. And that would help that issue.
Okay. I guess I'll speak briefly here. I'm not quite sure I support that at the moment. I think not everybody can apply or call in or write a letter or write an email 3 days ahead of time. I know some people will. Some people will understand the rules, but a lot of people won't. And I'd hate to cut people short or not allow them to speak. I know that's what this is all about. So I don't know if I really support it at the moment, but I don't know. Maybe we can talk about it a little bit more. Or if anybody else has any ideas, I guess we can hash it out now.
Yeah, my concern would be if they miss the 3 days, then they have to wait another 2 weeks before they're able to.
Well, council can allow them if they're here.
Okay.
It's more to create a new habit
Okay.
of just, I want to make sure that council's prepared. Like if someone has a complaint about a property that's in disarray or unsightly, it would be really nice for me to be able to provide that information in advance. So the more people that sign up in advance, the more prepared council will be.
So you see this as sometimes it'll help people solve the issue on the day of, but in some scenarios they will come here, but then it help with more efficiency and.
Yes.
Okay.
Is really what it is.
Exactly, because we do have an older population, and anytime it gets too technical or too, we will lose some of them. But solving them the day of, when they may be at their peak of frustration, is definitely something I think will go over well. As long as the other ones, like Will was mentioning, would still have an opportunity.
Mr. Jackson?
Yeah, my question would be, how will we let the public know that, that there's going to be the 3 day, but they can still come in? Because what if an issue doesn't happen except for the day before? It happened 24 hours before and they want to come in and speak about it.
So if we make this change, we'll put it out on social media. We're going to put it out in the newspaper and put it out in our newsletter. But I would actually write something up beforehand that the mayor could read out so that anytime people are coming to our meetings before that date, they'll be aware of the change. And even after that date, if someone comes, they can, of course, council can let them come and speak, but council can also say going forward, if possible, please sign up in advance so we can be prepared for what you're going to speak about.
So we can be more informed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think that we should give this a chance. I mean, implement it in September. My suggestion is during council comments, there'll be no comment from the gallery. If somebody comes up and speaks about for example, a grass issue, and then one of the council members here addresses that, they are not allowed to respond because it's just going to go back and forth. And we've had that go back and forth, and it just heats people up. And so I'm going to ask that the gallery not make any comments during council comments. If you need to speak to a specific council person or me, do it after the meeting, but we will not go back and forth during council comments.
I think we need to make that comment, that if you would like to speak, then your candidates, your chance would be after the meeting, and then it could be on the
Yeah, I will
one-on-one
say that
basis, or-
right before we start council comments
As long as you-
at every meeting.
As long as you say that, then they know
Yeah.
that we're not just ignoring them, or
Right.
giving it, so it's professional and moves on. And then it's up to the councilman, if they want to stay after and talk to them, that's up to them.
We can also add that to the agenda underneath council comments. Just letting them know that's not an interaction with the public, that's just council making comments to the public as well.
Real quickly, just to speak back on the agenda item in itself, I'm concerned. I don't believe this is really an issue. It's one of those things where it's not really broken. Yes, we've had some issues in the past where people yield their time to other people and, people speak for 10 or 15 minutes or whatever. Making it harder or more difficult for people to come up here and redress their grievances is not something I'm really interested in doing. We just celebrated the 4th of July holiday, and here we are making it harder for something that was specifically written in our founding document not to do. So I don't know. I guess we can try it and see how it works, but
But I think she
I'm just
mentioned
kind of leery
there's two
about this.
avenues here. There's two avenues. The one way where you can show up that day of and get your maybe problem already resolved, but you can still show up, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, as long as people can come and fill out the document like it's going now, it seems like to me we're just adding an extra step. But I'm willing to let it go and see how it works out. So
And I think just from a parliamentary standpoint, just procedure-wise, council comments are really just our council members' comments that addresses the chairman. And there's no feedback from the public. Petitions are the same way. Petitions, communications. When a member of the community comes up and speaks to us, we're not supposed to be answering questions. Now, the chairman or the mayor can if someone's asking a question, could step up and say, can you save that question for after the meeting? But I think the agenda just primarily speaks for itself from a parliamentary standpoint. Now, I'm with Will. I mean, I don't think we should restrict people from, add restrictions from people to come up and speak. So if this is just an addition to the agenda item, we're still gonna have petitions, communications and stuff, and people could still speak. I'll support it and see where it goes. But I just don't want us restricting anybody from coming up here to air a grievance or have a concern that they may just have that day. But I understand there has to be some structure, and I think the chairman will, has the authority to provide that sort of structure based on the agenda. If people are starting to ask council members for feedback during communications and petitions, that should be the chairman that says, you could ask these questions, but please ask it to council members after the meeting.
Okay, I'll work with, if it's all right, through the chair of the city clerk to amend the agenda, and we'll send it out to council to have a look at.
Sure.
Perfect. The next is a plaque in honor and recognition of veteran Charles Hardman. Councilman Worth, do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, this was something that I've had some members of the public has reached out to me to see if we could do something to honor veteran Charles Hardman. If you know Charlie, he's the guy that used to stand out in the corner of Chestnut and West Pike Street and pretty much greeted everybody on their way home from work. Typically, I think in order to, the guy was a veteran. The guy also provided that little bit of a ray of happiness to people's day after a long day of work by waving at them. And just to see the energy and the electricity, because I used to live in Staley and I used to drive that way back home from work, that people would join them. They would ask them questions. And now the community, is in support. They've even memorialized that corner as we speak right now. I think it would be a kind gesture on the city's part, and a very inexpensive one too. And it doesn't even have to be a plaque. It could be even just a road sign that, that honors him, honors that intersection. But, it's a work session. We can't decide on that, but I'll entertain other council members' comments on it. But my recommendation would be is that we allow the city manager to work with staff to see if that could be something that we can do to recognize him.
I agree.
I think that we definitely should honor and recognize him. We've done a bad job of capturing legacies and keeping them alive in the city. A lot of, I think we will name a bridge and we'll do a few things like that, but it's still not enough for the impact that these people had. Doing something little, and I'm not trying to just go big on everything, but his impact was big. The amount of smiles he put on people's faces when they drove by there. If we put a little plaque that people can't see, that's not going to keep making people smile when they drive by. If we put something there that is going to actually, people can see it, they can keep smiling, thinking about what that guy did. So I don't think we should do something little. Not something huge, but it's got to be significant enough to where it can be seen. It looks like that we actually want to recognize him, not that we felt like we just had to. And so I think we should do something. We shouldn't be afraid to put a little bit of money into this.
You're talking like a park bench, Councilman?
Well, I don't
His
think.
name on it?
Well, we'd have to talk to the owners of that property first. It doesn't have to be a park bench. It could be, I don't know. I'm not the creative type person. I can picture it in my head, but I can't explain it to you.
Okay.
Just something that you can see while you're driving by.
Would you like staff to take that back and come forward with a suggestion to council?
Yeah, and just with the thought of, we gotta be able to see it.
I mean, it could even be just a road sign, underneath the West Pike Street sign. I know when I go to other cities like Huntington and Charleston, you have the road sign, it could say 16th Street, and then below it, it could say Charles Harbin, Memorial Intersection. Something, something that everyone can recognize. I agree with Vice Mayor Riffle. I think we should do something that everyone could recognize, but not something that's gonna, totally break the bank. And that's why I think, maybe, and I'm sure under the direction of Ms. Fell, I'm sure she could, work with staff to come up with, hopefully come up with some options for us. So.
Okay. Next is home-based businesses. So I've recently found out, because I've been kind of researching the business and economic development part of the city, is home-based businesses, my understanding is they used to pay a B&O tax. Now they do not. So, and especially after the pandemic, so many people have started working from home. I wanted to get feedback from council, if that's something they would like me to look into, because with so many people working from home, and you could have a big consulting firm from home and you're not paying that portion of taxes. I wanted to know if that's something I can investigate.
Is that something already in code? We have right now?
My understanding was it before the city used to have it, and now we don't. So this is just with my own research. So again, I'm gonna research more, but before I spend a whole bunch of time, I wanted to know what council's thoughts are. I still have to talk to finance and speak to them about these issues. But just wanted to make sure before I move forward with that council's all right with that.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know just like the impact number wise.
More information on it.
Yeah.
I work from home, so I'm going to recuse myself from this discussion.
Well, I think it's worth looking into.
Okay.
If it's something that's already that's already in codified ordinances that we should be doing, then it's an enforcement issue. If it's something that we're going to start from scratch, I think we really have to, examine that and see also the unintended consequences of putting those sort of restrictions on or adding a tax on folks. I just believe in more business-friendly practices in our city. I mean, I understand that we do have to meet a budget, we just gave a significant, tax incentive, probably the most aggressive one in the state right now, for B&O tax on retail businesses in downtown that want to refurbish some downtown buildings. So, I mean, I think it's worth looking into. And if I'm to speak for myself, if I'm presenting more information on it, then I'll make a decision.
Okay. Next is the lease agreement with Gore Lux. So there is actually no attachment, but I was informed that there is a lease agreement in the works for the creation of a parking lot, and that the address of that is, where's that parking lot?
That's 222 West Main.
222 West Main.
Old City Hall.
Mm-hmm. Old City Hall. So I just really wanted to inform council that agreement is in the midst of being drafted and has been worked on for the last few months. And just want to hear your thoughts on that.
That's West Pike, correct? Not me. I thought it
Yeah.
was Main.
West Pike Street.
The old City Hall property.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
across from Huntington Bank.
Threw me for a loop there when I heard Main.
Sorry,
It's okay.
my apologies.
No worries.
So my question is, how many parking spots will that provide, Corlux?
So I don't have the engineering plans or anything. I have just found out that this is what's been in the works.
Okay.
Now, Richard might have that information because he's been
Councilman,
involved.
the rough estimate is around 20 spots. That's what Tom Brown came up with based on his rough estimate. Ms. Harvey has also come up with, speaking with her engineer about the same rough estimate. We're looking at 20 spots or so, no more than I say 22. We're figuring it's gonna be 20 right now.
So that's really just for information purposes and other comments if you have any.
So we can't really speak on actual, well, yeah, a couple, but I mean,
Well, I think we can do the general outline, what we're proposing, what I've talked to before meeting, with me, Chief Kitty and Chief Police have talked to Ms. Harvey about it. The general idea is that there'll be a long-term lease of the property with a provision in there that Gore Lux or its LLC, I think they're gonna do a separate one, but Gore Lux will develop that into a parking facility for itself, and that'll be a long-term lease that ties the amortization of that parking lot, and also that parking lot will come back to the city after that lease period is over. It's a common, basically, you see a lot of state does it, they'll lease their property at a low lease rate. It'll be developed by the developer, and the developer get their appreciation schedule out of it, and then the state will both generate economic base as well as get an improvement on the property at the end of that term. So that's kind of how we're structuring it, the same as the state does oftentimes for economic development. I think that the stream city manager is excited about it because it's a mechanism to get some cars off the street, take care of Gore Lux's parking issues. Also, the idea is that Gore Lux has to continue to develop and is kind of structured with its parking. It's hard to develop that further for its retail establishments they want to do. So I think it goes hand in hand with council's goal of overall encouraging retail development down.
So that being a private parking lot, that would not require handicap spots.
I believe they're planning on doing handicap spots. It's not but it also, it would require, I believe, at least one, maybe two. I believe, from what I can tell, I haven't gone deep into the parking lot regulation. I don't think the private aspect of it changes it.
Okay.
I think under the ADA, it's still gonna have my general understanding, I could be wrong, is that if you have a parking lot, you have to have a handicap spot, and the number of those spots depend upon the total number of spots. But I believe Ms. Harvey is planning on at least one handicap spot, and she's nodding yes, so.
Yes, correct.
Mr. Marsh, has there at least has it been drafted or?
We have a draft that Ms. Harvey and I have been working on.
Okay.
We just need to finalize that and get it ready to go to council on
Okay.
that. And we're happy to share that, probably the next week or so.
Thank you.
Perfect. Next is the charter review, and this is coming as a suggestion from our city clerk. So Annette, did you want to kind of give a background on that?
Yeah. In order to do this past election, I had to use the old charter and the new charter, kind of combine them to make this election work. There's a couple of sections, at least one in particular, that if we go with the county, which we're going to, but the filing period by our charter says March 1st to the 15th. If we're going to follow the state, it's going to have to be in January and we follow the state guidelines. So that's going to be off. So there's some things that need to be cleaned up just because of the fact they weren't addressed previously.
So just wanted to see if council is okay with us moving forward on combining those two documents and making it make sense for the city.
Is that something that you will work with the city clerk and the city attorney on?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if we needed to have another work session just to hash that out.
No, we'll work through it and we'll bring it back to a work session before we bring it to a council meeting. So council can have a thorough understanding of the changes. Next is the wind sculpture and gazebo. So we have, these two items are sitting in one of our buildings. They were purchased, I'm actually not sure when they were purchased, but I found out that they are there. So the wind sculpture, I've been told it's been said it's been agreed to go in the new parking lot with the Gore Lux. I had a couple conversations with other people in the organization. One suggestion was that we put it in the Waldemore in the yard there, beside the library. It would be a nice piece to add to there. So I'm really looking for some feedback from council on what's their thoughts on what we should do with that. But what I don't like is that we have something that was purchased and sitting in a box. It needs to be put out there. And then I'll go to the gazebo one and then I'll ask for feedback. So we also have a gazebo sitting unassembled.
Can we send these back?
They've been ordered too much long in advance to return. So the gazebo, what I thought we could do is actually get suggestions from council on where you think it could go and put it out as a piece to the public for them to vote on where they think it would be best in Clarksburg and construct it there. I just thought it was a good way to interact with the public. So or if you have other suggestions, please bring them forward. But those are kind of my two things with the wind sculpture and gazebo I'd like to get council's feedback on.
I'd like to see a picture of the wind sculpture if possible. I may have seen it in the past, but I don't.
It's not
recall it.
assembled.
Like if there's a picture like on the internet or something, like wherever it was bought from or.
I can try,
Okay.
but I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get that one, because when you Google it, and I will try, it comes from like a 2-foot one to a 14-foot one, and I just don't know what it is, but I will try.
What size is the one that we have?
I believe it's pretty big.
She had a picture of it.
I was on the beautification committee, I do have a picture of that.
Okay,
Do you think you could email it to council?
Yeah.
I appreciate it, Marcia. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
I had heard, talking with Kim, the owners of the board, that there was discussion about it being placed at the parking lot.
Mhm.
Which I guess I think that would be fine. I think the gazebo might do better with the Parks and Rec and allow them to place it at a park, whether it's the VA park or the city park in Hunterford, or another park somewhere else. I mean, that's.
Harrison Street.
Oh. But, I mean, that would be my idea for the gazebo. I don't really like the idea of being along Main or Pike, honestly, but, I'm open to suggestions.
I think the wind sculpture downtown, right there in the parking lot, we've already talked about it.
Okay.
It'd be about the same as it would be by the library. People would see it when they drive by. We'd get the same effect. Yeah, so I think keep it at that parking lot.
Okay, and what about the gazebo?
Maybe the parks, I don't want it downtown.
Yeah, it's just going to
That's
be a
gonna
gathering
cause a
spot.
problem, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I agree, Will too.
Okay, so I,
Yeah, John?
This gazebo you're talking about is like 12 by 14. It's not a great big large gazebo. It's a very small structure. Not new development. So you need to go look at
So maybe it wouldn't, is it all wood?
It's too small for a park, you're saying?
it. It's pretty small.
Like it would look silly?
It's like it's 12 by 14. It's not a real big
Okay.
gazebo.
you know, maybe in the Jackson Cemetery, since we're gonna start doing tours down there.
Of course, we can't have everything.
Appropriate there.
Some things haven't changed.
if you would like, we could, staff could talk about it at our next meeting and see if Public Works has a suggestion and speak with Parks about it too and bring that back to council.
No, I know the Rails for Trails, they just put one in Northview. Did they build a pavilion or was that actually up by the VA?
I know that there is one on the northeast section that they've been working on. As far as the South Trail, I'm not aware of it, but I know I recently saw a picture of it, but I don't know if that was on the Northview Trail, because that one on the Northview Trail has been there for a long time. But I couldn't tell from the picture exactly where it was at. But I know they named it after a former member of their board. But yeah, I mean, being at only 12 by 14, like I said, I think maybe it would be a good place, like a park or somewhere where people could use it for picnics or whatever, but just not on Main or Pike. I mean, I agree.
Okay.
I had a question on the wind sculpture. So how would because there was an agenda item here about the lease agreement with Gore Lux. So how would the wind sculpture affect that project? Would it affect it?
No, I think the only thing is it's gonna continue to sit in a box until that's constructed.
How big is it, John?
What is it called?
I have a picture of it right here.
Yeah,
It's a decent size.
it's up to $100.
I saw it. I saw it. I've got pretty good eyes. I saw it when you flashed your camera there, or your phone there. It's interesting looking, that's for sure.
It's not that, it's honestly, it's not that big.
No.
It's probably this big,
Around, yeah.
you know. and
So it's not going to affect any of your parking spots, you just have it on a pole above?
No, sir, what I was planning on doing with the parking lot is right on the corner of Third and West Pike Street right there, where there's gonna be no parking spots, or you can't really, it's dead space anyways, because that's where they dead end each other. I have a plan to do some nice stone walls right there. I'm gonna run water and electricity to that one area so that we can have some beautification and some like year-round evergreen trees that we can put lights on for the holidays and change, lights and have water right there, locked up. And we were gonna put the sculpture in the middle of those stone walls and beautification so that people, that's a very heavily trafficked intersection, as we all know. So it would be very well viewed there. And we could put a plaque there as well. I have no problem doing recognition of whatever we would want to call that in there, so that when people are pulling up to the lights on both sides of the intersections, they would be able to see that.
I'll move forward. We'll bring something back to council with both of those then. Next is rebranding. So this is just my analysis of being here for just under a month, but my understanding is council is really interested in moving Clarksburg forward, economic development, really seeing a thriving city. And I think one of the things that we need to look at is a rebranding of the city, coming up with some guiding principles, aligning those guiding principles with the decisions that council makes, alignment within department that this rebranding and these guiding principles, this is what we strive to achieve for the city. To do a rebranding, you would have to bring in a consulting firm. There is a price associated with that. It's not super expensive, but it really does create a cohesive community, that messaging that citizens and administration and visitors can all get behind when they come to the city. And I wanted to get council's thoughts on that.
I'm fully in favor of that because I think we need to start telling our own story here in Clarksburg. You know, people hear a lot about the negative that goes on. We need to start pushing out a positive image of our city. If we're going to bring new business into downtown, then, you know, we need to start with basically telling a story, you know, the things that we're talking about right now, get those things created and then push those things out there. Rebranding, I think, is a great idea to start with.
I think personally, in the last 2 years, the city has made immense strides in promoting itself on social media through Paul. You know, before 2021 or whenever Paul came on board, the city social media was just not there. Like I said, I think it's headed in the right direction as far as rebranding goes. I guess, you know, I thought we were doing, I mean, I guess you can always do better, but like I said, just the amount of social media we've seen in the last 2 years has been amazing, in my opinion, from where we were. But you know, I'd like to see, you know, maybe a different direction or a new motto or slogan, or, you know, if that's what you know, if that's what comes with it.
That is one piece of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so I like, it will also help us give us direction. I do agree that Paul has done a great job. But also by rebranding, you can give us a better direction. I know this is part of, this could be, Will's talked about it. I mentioned the other day, Jeff with Revitalize or Die, bringing him in here, and he is a consultant and he can bring, I mean, he's very informational. I mean, he can give a lot of informational help and direction and rebranding and trying to cut down apathy and raise up the civic pride. And I think all of that goes in together, and it gives us a direction. Because we have a lot of good ideas, but we don't really have a direction. Actually, another thing that Paul mentions, that we need our direction, because if not, we'll have you all over the place. So I think rebranding goes in with improving our strategy, strategic planning as well. And that she spoke about that. We need that as well. Comprehensive plan is not so much everything, but we still need strategic planning, direction, and rebranding can all be the start of that.
And I believe you should use your current structures too that you already have in place. I mean, we have a great park board, probably one of the best in the state. We have a CDD, you know, director that is responsible for attracting visitors. Of course, we have Paul, really does a wonderful job with you know, marketing our city too. Consulting may be good too, but even the history museum. You know, I mean, I go around town and I see these new historical plaques, and maybe I'm biased because I'm a historian, but I see how, you know, that walking tour is also sort of rebranding us too. So I think it's a good idea, and I'm glad that you're taking leadership on it. But also, with that said too, also utilize your existing structures around too.
No, I agree. I actually already met with the CDD
Okay.
and told her that this was my idea. She's like, yeah, we can work together and bring in all those stakeholders to really,
Fantastic.
and that's the point of it, is to bring everybody together. Even if you have different functions in the city, you still can have cohesion and alignment with what you're trying to achieve for the city and how you do it. That's
Fantastic.
really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, all the major corporations already have this in place, so it's the same with them.
If we could have Marshall speak on, as part of the rebranding, is signs on the interstate and how, you know,
You weren't here 6 months ago. The Clarksburg History Museum is starting to do tourism here, and we're right at it happening. Couple of things that what I was doing is the interstate attraction, the signs that say attraction. We have 2 spots on that. One of them is the Clarksburg History Museum, and the other one should be the Clarksburg Historic District. That I need a letter from you all stating that. I told him the historic things that are here already, and he told me that all I needed was a letter from you all, and that would be the second sign. There's only 2 signs. One of them is something that's not even a business anymore, so that's coming off. And the 2 signs will be ours. One will be the Clarksburg History Museum, because you have to be open specific hours to be on that attraction sign. The other one can be the Clarksburg Historic District.
And we have 3 historic districts, Main and Pike Street, Glen Elk, and Quality Hill. So we definitely qualify for that, and I've already told him about that. So those are 2 given that we have, and back in January, you all gave me the money, well, not yet, to do these marker signs. He and I were also talking about Route 50, and I'm convincing him to put another marker signage thing on Chestnut Street, because Chestnut Street leads to the Splash Zone, it leads to the Clarksburg History Museum, it leads to Weaver's Art Gallery, it leads to the Stonewall Jackson birthplace, it leads to the Waldemore. So he's thinking along those lines also. And in fact, today, they came in today to ask me, what hours are you open, to verify that we really are open, we really are there. So that is going on. Plus, I talked to the governor's office today, and I told them about the tours that we're getting ready to start, which should start in the next 2 weeks, which is a local tour called the Stonewall Jackson City Civil War Tour. Then we're planning on the historical tour with the markers that we put in, which is the first 16. The second phase is another 16, and then the third phase is another 16 over in Glen Elk, all in the process. And we're planning on doing Stonewall Jackson Civil War Tour, we're planning on doing a historical marker tour, and we're planning on doing this 3 cemeteries that we have. John's office has been good and is putting markers up for us, so you can, when you get off of 50, you can find your way to these places easily. Then we are also getting ready to start a 4-county tour, which is in the works, that will bring people in here and they will spend money here because they're going to stay here. They're going to stay in Hilton Garden Inn. And I was on the phone with him today. He is going to come, and I just have to get information. I have to send them some more information. And I wanted to talk to you all because he's coming. It could be, she told me that he usually plans things out a week or 2 ahead of time, and that's it. So, and she asked me, what dates would you like him to come? And I said, I don't have any dates planned. It's whatever he would be available to do. So that's something that's starting from the historical point. And I left you all the flyers that we have made. And we're getting ready to start doing television advertising as soon, in the next couple of weeks. We're right at that go point.
Okay.
So I need a letter from you all to get the second attraction signed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Marcia, for everything.
Thank you so much. Next, we have the Thrasher Engineering. It's their anniversary, so they randomly picked out organizations that employ their services to give a $1,000 donation to. And our city clerk suggested that we use that $1,000 donation to reactivate our youth council. I wanted to know if council's thoughts on that.
I was unaware that it was inactive. I mean, I knew, I guess that's how, anyway, yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah,
That's
sounds
wonderful, yeah.
And they will come and present a check to us at a future meeting.
Perfect.
Is it something that we should advertise beforehand and have kids, the youth ready to go, or?
The youth part, it normally starts when school starts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
People September.
Okay.
How are the young people selected for that program?
Anybody that wants to participate, we don't keep anybody from it.
Certain grades though, right?
No, not anymore. Because we felt that, well, no, it is just high school. It is just high school, I'll tell you that, because it's easier to work with the high school group than it is the younger kids. But, no, one time it was a GPA average, and then we decided that wasn't fair to those who maybe not be good in school, but really are, could have an outlet somewhere else, so.
Okay. This kind of wraps up into E. So council kind of already gave direction on this to bring suggestions and amendments when we bring forward the charter. So we'll do that in a future work session. Next is the beautification committee. So I've been looking at some of the committee structures that we have, and this is one that I've identified that I think the budget can just be under council's budget for beautification within the city. And a committee actually isn't required to accomplish these goals. So that is the suggestion, and that is why it's on the upcoming council agenda. I don't know if council wants to give thoughts on that, or if this was just for information, but I wanted to make sure council knew why this was on the agenda.
Well, they didn't even meet quorum last time, did they? Or
They did not. They did
So it's not being participated much.
What was the budget for it? What did we have?
You know, I don't, Kim, do you know that?
This year it was 80,000.
80,000.
Wow.
So I think there's a lot of that. I've heard there's sidewalk work, there's some downtown beautification. There's just lots of things in the city that I've already heard that the public and administration would like to work on. So I'd just like to bring those suggestions to council for budget discussions during the year when they arise, and just get council to discuss and vote on them in that manner, and then get the work done right away to see the results of that.
I mean, anytime we can involve citizens, I know some people think anytime you try to involve the citizens and try to figure out where something how we should spend certain money, whether it's online polls or things, I think that would be something that would be good for this. I don't know how it got to 80,000. I mean, I remember vaguely, there was other things that was combined with it, but yes, rather than a smaller committee just figuring this out, I think it'd be better if we can open it up to the citizens somehow. I don't know what portal that could be in or how we could do that.
We'll take that back and look at that, for sure. Next is cell phone and insurance stipends for council. So one of the questions that Human Resource asked me is, because there's new council, how it works here is council has the opportunity to participate in the city's health program. And they don't have to, they can opt out if they have health care with another method, another job, or they insure themselves or whatever that is. I believe because it's been, in the past, it's been very inconsistent. I think just putting a number on that, and my suggestion was a $300 cap. So if you opt out of it, the city, instead of paying through the city, you can put $300 towards wherever else you get your health insurance from. You just have to demonstrate that you have health insurance somewhere else that you can put towards it. When I looked historically, some people were close to 500, someone else was close to 150. So it was just very odd. So I think by putting a standardized number on it, it's equitable across the council table. My other suggestion is a cell phone stipend, because council is using their personal cell phones for city business. Just putting a number onto that. My suggestion is $100 a month towards that. Being on council is a lot of work. We don't provide you with cell phones, so I think it's fair and reasonable that we would cover that cost. But again, this is completely up to council. Those are my two number suggestions. Just wanted to hear council's thoughts.
go ahead. Sorry, Jerry.
Might as well let Will go first on this one.
Why are you going, what are you trying to say? Well, if you want me to go first, I don't think we need a cell phone stipend. I'd venture to say most of us have cell phones here. I've had the same cell phone number since 2003. I may be a world record, but I don't think it's necessary. Insurance stipends, I'm kind of torn about. I get the stipend, just like some of the city employees do. I know some members of council take advantage of the PEIA insurance. I think the best thing to do would be to codify that into an ordinance. I was thinking about drafting one, and the last meeting before 2023 started, I told the city that was one of my objectives to create an ordinance for that. I have not done that because I'm so torn about council insurance, because I know people on this council use it. I know people who get the stipend. I know there's a member of council who does not get the stipend. And that was a request from him to the finance department. So I don't really know how to handle this, but to me personally, it should be either you take advantage of the city's PEI insurance or you don't. I mean, that's how I look at it. I'm not quite sure it would save a lot of money at the end of the day, but it would save some. But I don't know if we're,
Well, and I'm not,
splitting hairs here, I
I'll
guess.
have to talk to the attorney about an ordinance like that, because if the majority or all of council says yes to it, then the ordinance is voting for income for yourselves.
Mhm. Yep.
So I'm not sure how that would work, so.
Yeah, that would have to take place, or it would go into effect at the next council,
Right.
in 2 years or 3,
Mhm.
whatever, however that may play out,
Right,
so.
so so you're no on the cell home, not sure on the stipend.
Yeah, like I said, we need to talk about it because I know people genuinely, need it. And that's, at the end of the day though, we're not, it seems like we're not full-time city employees. So there's definitely a gray area. And when that gray area started, I'm not sure. But it seems fair to me that it would be either you get the insurance for the 4 years that you served or you don't. I mean, that's just, to get compensated like people who have worked here for how many, what is it, 10 years? Is that how that worked out? You have to be a city employee for 10 years?
Well, that was something that we've done in the past.
But we did vote on it recently, right? That was part of, we actually voted on that because there was 18 or 19 members of the city who did not get that stipend and who did not qualify for it?
We don't believe that passed.
We fixed it in the budget to where some employees were not getting it. I don't know. if we
Yes,
voted on it.
okay, so I guess that's what I was referring to.
Other thoughts?
So you're talking about, Councilman Hom, you're talking about just in council, not city employees, everything.
This is just.
I think we need to define what council is when it comes to being an employee. Are we a city employee or are we not? I didn't file an application to be an employee here. I ran for office. So, I think that's a big difference than coming into punch a time card every day from 9 to 5. I mean, that's just.
And so council's clear, I do need direction on this because there is a timeline attached to this through HR.
My thought is, and I think I saw this somewhere, that it's $540 a month per person that's the cost. Is that correct? For the insurance? I feel like I saw that somewhere in the paperwork that HR gave me. So I don't think it should be you get 100% of that cost back, but I don't think it should be that you don't get anything if you don't take the insurance, because the other members then are receiving more of a benefit than you, because it's worth something.
And I think the stipend is also to offset the amount of people that would use it to where it does keep our costs down. Because the stipend doesn't exist, then it may be more beneficial for everybody
To be double insured, maybe.
double insurance, or to always choose this instead of a spouse's insurance.
Yeah.
So the stipend, I think, is built in to help us save money. I mean, maybe Kim can speak more on that, but I believe that's the purpose
Yes,
of
because
it.
it doesn't reach the amount that is paid.
That it actually costs.
Yeah. Any other thoughts from,
I mean, I'll echo what Councilman Hyman said. I mean, I don't even think we have any codified ordinances on this whole situation. I think, and I don't know where the standard started. But at the end of the day, I think we have to be careful, like especially with the cell phone stipend. If we're voting on things that we're going to have a financial gain towards, that would be.
To be clear, you guys, this is not going to come for a vote.
Okay.
This is actually something that administration can decide, but I felt that this was a discussion because it's a financial matter that we should have with council.
Okay, and that's fine. I mean, and if it's more of just a internal policy manual type situation that you structure, I mean, the question still, the big, I guess the 10,000-pound elephant in the room is a city council a city employee, or are we a board?
Well, I think
that's the big
that's
question.
a very different discussion,
Yeah.
right? Whether you're a city employee or not. And if you that means you would qualify for sick time, you would qualify for vacation time. This is just really, because a lot of people will have benefits through a spouse work or their work, but even on this council, if it doesn't apply, it may apply to the next council, right?
And that's fine, yeah.
So that is kind of the reason why we're asking, if you want that threshold, what is it you want it to be? Again, the suggestion on the table is $300. If the consensus of council is no to the cell phone stipend, that's fine. That was a suggestion put forward. It doesn't really matter to me. I know how much time council, guys and gals, spend on the phone, doing city work, using your own personal cell phones and stuff. So I thought that might be a fair suggestion. But if council, the majority of council says no, that's fine. But I do have to let human resources know how to move forward.
And so with that said, if this doesn't have to come up for a vote in the
It does
future or anything, if this is just a policy manual change that you make, then I guess it's up to each city council member whether or not, they would want that cell phone stipend. Because if you're going to add that to the policy manual and you're in charge of making revisions to that, we on city council can't tell you, no, you can't make revisions to that.
Right.
So it would be up to each individual council member whether or not they would take advantage of that stipend or not.
Is it, you okay with that resolution? Councilor
Well,
Riley?
I think you're wading back into that gray area. I mean, I don't know. I think that the correct route would be to define city council's position at the city and put it into a codified ordinance. I think that's the route we should be taking here and defining that. Even if it can't go into effect until 2024 or 2026, I'm okay with that. I mean, I think it needs to be clearly defined because right now it's not. And if you direct HR to change something, and again, this is part of that gray area, and all of a sudden our monthly check on council goes up, I'd be concerned. I'd be getting a call from the ethics commission. But again,
So to
I
be
don't
clear,
know.
it's still that 400, if it's 300 or 400, that's still less than what last council was doing. So the total amount is less. So it's not like anybody's getting a raise, because they're not.
And it makes it even across the board. Because then you say it's not, how is it not even now? There's not a set stipend?
There's not a set stipend, no.
I think that's where we need to
And
point our direction is. Where in our charter or our ordinances does it say that city council receives this stipend or these benefits? Where does it say that? Until it says that, I'm concerned about going in the other direction. That's where I'll leave it.
I agree with
Yeah, I
that.
agree with that.
so is the direction then not to have anything? Because this isn't required to be in an ordinance, so it's a policy decision. So I'm not sure how we should move forward then.
Richard, is the timeframe on it?
Or, if I may, insert it into the employee manual. If we're receiving the same benefits the employees do, then it should clearly stipulate it into the employee manual or the employee handbook where city council stands, where council stands in that. Right now, it doesn't do that either. So I may be wrong. Somebody may correct me on that, but
I can go back and speak with Richard on this, and then we can make a decision so we're not contravening anything that already exists.
yeah, it's safe to say that there's nothing that does exist when it comes to that. When it comes to that information about council.
If nothing exists, then how are they getting the stipend now?
That's a good question.
I can't answer.
Yeah, okay, nobody seems to know.
I can't answer.
Okay, just curious.
Okay, we'll move on. Discussion regarding speed bumps or humps at city parks. Councilor Vice Mayor Riffle, sorry, I will get used to that by the end of today. This was a discussion you want to put on the agenda. My understanding was this was discussed a few months ago about putting speed bumps at every city park. And the request was to put it in an ordinance. And before I go ask the attorney to do work, I just wanted to make sure that get feedback from council on this.
So there has been a lot of discussion about speed bumps and, obviously there's one speed bump out there, everybody knows where it's at. And I think through a lot of discussions, there has been conversation of people being in favor of moving forward with more speed bumps. But the issue is creating a process to where how that speed bump is chosen, not just randomly in certain spots. And to get things rolling, and the timing was because school was just out too, and I understand government's slow, but like I was trying to get the ball rolling and get this process started, but doesn't really need to be a process to determine that speed bumps are needed in front of playgrounds. Because kids play there, that's the reason. That's where we can get things started. And then gives us time to get a real process started to where it's on different random streets. What's the criteria? How do we involve the public? Speed checks, things like that. But just putting one out there, we should have always had a process started when we did that. So again, I just want to get this moving because I think the consensus was that we are in favor of more speed bumps, and playgrounds is the best place to start.
My question is, do these speed bumps come up in the wintertime?
No.
Okay, so now we're gonna,
You can purchase speed bumps that are put down for spring, summer, and fall, and do come up in wintertime.
because I mean, that's what it's kind of.
I think Mr. Workman can clue us in. I think there was ample discussion at a traffic commission meeting. I think he can help us out here.
It was the manual for uniform traffic control places put up by the federal government. There are certain guidelines you have to meet for certain streets where we put speed bumps. Okay, we're not talking speed bumps, we're actually talking speed humps, they are different. Okay? If we go down this route into the neighborhoods, and there's certain distances that have to be made from the streets, there has to be speed studies done. There's some stuff you have to do, there's some engineering stuff that has to be done. And we can build speed bumps, speed humps out of blacktop, they have to be signed, or has to be striping on, they have to be well marked. They can stay down year round. There are towns, we talked to a couple places that have done, they're made out of blacktop, and their humps are large, they're not like you see like in the WB hospital, like humps, they're just like a swell in the road. So there is a way to do that. Parks, I think we can get by with the parks, some of the parks. We can't do all the parks, some of the parks are located along state highways. We can't let our parks take speed bumps on state highways. Some of our city parks, we can't do this around those. In that traffic commission meeting, we discussed a couple of locations that we can probably do this.
So I'm thinking Mulberry is a dead end street, right? That's where the park is.
Yeah, that's true.
Not necessary. The Adamson one, it's more of like in the back.
It's in an alley.
So not really necessary. Staley Park's got the state roads, but the side residential streets with the exits from the parks
Right.
is necessary.
Euclid Avenue.
Yeah.
Harrison Street, Gulf Avenue, we got a couple of places like that.
And I understand the backside of it. It's going to be more difficult when we paving or not paving, but when we, paving as well, but.
So, like I said, the ones that are designed, you go out to Bridgeport, you can see the ones that they're using out there. So you can plow on those. They built a mold we can actually use to build a run out of, to go that route. You can plow on those. I've done some checking on that. Okay? That's how we're going to put them in. Like I said, once we get into just specific neighborhoods, somebody calls in, hey, we're speeding down the street, I want to speed hump. We might as well just pave all the streets and humps.
Yeah.
So there are guidelines out there. There is, like I said, under the MUTCD, it's just making for traffic control devices.
And
Does some research, there's another traffic commission meeting coming up. I'm sure there'll be some further discussion about that. As far as around the playgrounds, that's something that, we could probably get started on that if that's what council wishes.
I think one thing that comes up from this is the citywide speed limit. It's 25, correct?
Statewide, the state speed limit in the city limits is 25.
So we couldn't change that.
By the ordinance of council, you have the right to lower the speed limit. I'm pretty sure you can check this. to 15 miles an hour. Now, playgrounds, schools, that's automatic. But any street in town, I'm pretty sure by order of council, you guys can lower the speed limits to 15 miles an hour. And make it close. Or raise it. Yeah, I'll go with what.
Well, I definitely wouldn't want to raise it.
55. That's how some people go up Gulf Avenue. I ain't gonna lie about
With the limited parking on the streets, how would the speed humps affect the traffic flow? And how would that work out? Because, you know, there's parking on the streets, a lot of people park on the street. Would it be just a speed hump in one lane?
If you look at Buchanan Avenue, for example, if there's no cars on the right side, you can go around it. So I don't think they ever go into the parking area. I don't know another city, but
You have to leave room for parking. If there is parking on the street, you also have to leave room for drainage. You can't run out against the curbs. You have to let water run down the curb lines, not in front of the yards. Need that.
so if we put one on Spring Avenue, we gotta be careful.
Always bring that up.
Any other comments?
I think that's good. I think we should probably move on an ordinance for parks and then maybe follow up with the traffic committee or commission rather and see what can be done about other, like a criteria that's set that, you know, you say John Q. Public calls in and says they, like Johnny said, you know, they're going 100 mile an hour up our street. Then we can put forth a process where public works will go out and put traffic counters and, or what they're speed counters. Then we can go from there. But I think parks is a great idea. I think we can all support that.
Now, Johnny, do you see as a cost-effective way of us build or buying our own mold? I mean, because I know when the water board comes and redoes streets, we want to be able to maybe help them as well to replace that speed bump.
We're trying to borrow one from another city and just make our own. We can construct it ourselves.
I mean, I think it'd be more cost-effective to have our own instead of borrowing.
Yeah, we'll borrow the one to get the blueprint, get the.
Yeah.
And produce our own, give it back to them, and we have our own.
Sounds good.
The cost of the sign shouldn't take. You have to paint the stripes on them, you have three marker stripes, and then you have signs for the directions, telling drivers there's a speed on it. So you will incur some cost of the sign and paint. And if it's an asphalt, because you're made out of black.
And so if the gas company or the water board is tearing up the street, will we have something in place that where, no matter where they're put, they are responsible for replacing that as it was?
We have that ordinance in place now, that I have to put the streets back to certain codes. I'd take a look at the city, I'd say, we all will use that in some way if they want to force that into.
Can you explain the difference between the speed bump and the speed hump
In
again?
the WVU hospital, go around on the hospital.
Yeah,
Those are speed bumps.
bumps, okay.
Speed humps, you got the switchboard, drive out some neighbors in switchboard. The speed humps are wide.
Yeah, wider.
Against to that wall, and they're not really high, there's a certain
Okay.
level of height of them. So
Gotcha.
it's Just kind of.
Yeah.
Deterrent for
Yeah.
driving fast. But once the WVU hospital, if you get one of those hard, you put a suspension of your car.
So, you know, moving forward with this, if we get all the playgrounds done, what kind of timing are we looking at before we start to move these into communities?
Communities can apply for speed bumps at any time, an individual. There's a process for it, and we're actually just putting that process into a policy, so there's some public understanding around that, because I've already heard a lot of confusion, and we're gonna put that out to the public. So it's, as it stands right now, there's no community or citywide initiative, it's on an as-needed basis. And I can see why that some of the public wants it. An example is where I lived just last week. A kid came in a car, drove through my front yard and took my mailbox clean off on the curb.
Welcome to the park.
So I can see why the requests will be coming in for situations like when you live on a blind curve or down a hill or just like a connector road. And when we discuss this again, if council wants to look at a citywide plan, that's something we can discuss in the future for sure.
Sounds good.
Okay, that brings the conference session to a close. Do I have an adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? You're adjourned.